With the House back in session this week, H.R. 1 is on the floor. Every House Democrat has signed on to the legislation, which aims to reform federal elections. But Republicans say not so fast.
But you can't ever accept when they steal and rig and rob.
After the turbulent 2020 election, followed by the deadly assault on the Capitol, many agree election reform is needed. Unfortunately, what that looks like depends on the side doing the talking. For Democrats, it comes in the form of H.R. 1, which they call the For the People Act. This legislation aims to basically create a nationalized voting system, requiring uniform rules for all states. It would, for example, mandate early voting, then same-day registration, outlaw voter ID requirements, and allow ballot harvesting.
The Democrats have been campaigning on two key provisions.
California Congressman Ro Khanna sees it as common sense reform.
One, that every person should have an equal right to vote, and that the voting rights really matter, and especially after the passage passing of John Lewis. Many Americans believe that we shouldn't have lobbyists and big donors and big money influencing our politics, and this would really try to get rid of a lot of the influence of big money.
Conservatives counter that the For the People Act only benefits progressives and liberals by helping them keep control in Washington.
And it is full of federal mandates and prohibitions that would, in essence, weaken all of the security protocols in the election process and, frankly, make it easy to cheat, easy to manipulate election results, and very difficult for states to detect or deter election fraud.
Hans von Spakovsky with the Heritage Foundation was once a commissioner on the Federal Election Commission, which enforces federal laws on federal campaigns.
They're claiming it's all about access to the ballot box, but what they forget to tell folks is that you have to have both access and security. And there's no reason, for example, to do what H.R. 1 does, which is to make it illegal for any state to have a voter ID requirement. At the same time, the bill, for example, with regard to absentee ballots, says states can't apply a witness signature requirement for an absentee ballot. Again, there's no reason to do that unless, frankly, you want to make it easy for people to be able to cheat when they vote.
Khanna disagrees that getting rid of the ID requirement would open the door for fraud.
I don't think so. I mean, the studies have not shown that voter fraud is rampant. I mean, I know that this is a big dispute. What I would say is, why don't we actually create a election commission based on the last election, 2020, and actually look at the studies and what happened. And I think it will show that you didn't have this sense of massive voter fraud. A lot of the voters who are not voting in some of these states are conservative voters, which is why you saw the Trump team putting such an effort on increasing voter turnout. So I think we all should be for higher voter turnout, and I don't think that's necessarily always going to benefit the Democrats.
The legislation, first introduced 2 years ago, would also require political groups to disclose high-dollar donors, create reporting requirements for online political ads, and in a nod to Trump, obligate presidents to disclose their tax returns. And with Democrats holding the majority in the House, Senate, and White House, this could be their time. The bill's fate ultimately depends on if enough Republicans will consider the legislation that they've rejected time and time again. If not, Democrats could eliminate the Senate filibuster, which would get rid of the 60-vote requirement. In Washington, Jenna Browder, CBN News.